Today we're joined by RJ Tracy, Director of Corporate Sales at Domo. RJ, tell us a little bit about you and your sales background.
Yeah, so I've been in sales for over 15 years. Currently, as you mentioned, I'm a sales leader here at Domo. I've been in SaaS technology for over 10 years. Worked for companies like Inside Sales, as well as a few other software companies.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining today. Today we're here to discuss the smarter selling by leveraging data. And I know here at Domo we provide leaders in sales, marketing, finance, and more the opportunity to improve their business results by connecting them to data and their people they need to drive insights. But I believe it really starts there. RJ, the market is always looking for better ways to bring their products to the market, engage customers faster, drive higher revenue, retain the loyalty of customers, and on and on. However, you can't really improve what you don't understand or have visibility into. As a sales leader, tell me about the frustration caused by the lack of this visibility.
Yeah, there's a lot of frustration. One of the biggest ones is the fact that it causes inaccurate forecasting. So forecasting has a lot to do with how companies are modeled, how companies hire, where they spend money, and a lack of visibility into accurate forecasting causes a huge issue in those areas. Also, you don't have insight into where are we winning, where are we losing, what makes a good rep, where are opportunities being wasted, where are we underachieving in the business, areas of that nature.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate that. How much has changed since you've been in the industry from when you started out until now?
Yeah, a lot's changed. Even things as simple as CRMs, have become a lot more popular over the last 10 years. The fact that they're cloud now and anybody can purchase them. Back in the day, sales reps really owned their Rolodex, and they took that Rolodex with them from company to company. Companies didn't have a lot of insight into activities that reps were performing. We had no way to really do attribution in marketing, understand cadence of opportunities, touches. So you really couldn't model what a good opportunity looked like and what a correct sales process looked like. It was really hard to have insight into that because there was no data. But today you have all that information. In fact, most companies are inundated with information. They have so much data, they don't know what to do with it.
Well, actually, let's start there. That's kind of the crux of what we want to discuss today. Tell me about, as a sales leader, what do you want or need to see?
Yeah, so it's interesting. A lot of sales leaders today are used to really looking at what they have, where they've been, and what we need is to see what do we need and when do we need it by. And so the example is, how many opportunities does each one of my sales reps need in order to hit their number? What is their individual recipe for success? How successful are they at conversion? How many opportunities do they get? When do they need them? And we need to be looking into the future, because in a lot of cases, the activities that we're actually doing today won't really impact our sales today. They're going to impact us 3, 4, 6 months down the road. And so we need to have insight to make sure that everybody's doing the right things today so that we can hit our numbers 4 or 5 or 6 months into the future. And we need to understand on an individual basis what that is for every rep. We also need to be making sure that our reps are taking an escalator versus elevator approach.
Well, that's interesting. I think I understand what you mean by that, but explain to me what the difference between the two approaches are.
Yeah, so the elevator approach is where you get a handful of prospects and you take them all the way through the sales process. And a lot of reps get excited over pipeline, focus a lot of their attention on trying to close deals that are already in pipeline, and they forget to continue to add people. So the escalator approach is where you have prospects all throughout different stages of the sales process, and you constantly are putting people on that escalator so that you always have a full pipeline at each stage, whatever those stages are, where, again, the elevator approach is really reps get excited, they start paying a lot of attention to deals and forget to add new people.
Tell us a little bit about some examples of teams that are on the elevator. What happens? What are the downfalls to that, and how do you recognize that?
Yeah. So downfalls, of course, are the fact that you're putting all your eggs in a basket. Deals fall out. We all have that in sales, and we are not adding new pipeline. And so, our potential for revenue goes out the window. So it's very detrimental to a business not to have the escalator approach. Now, as far as the insights that or the data that you need to look at to really understand that is some of its cadence and making sure, that reps have enough at each stage in the pipeline and that you're managing cadence. How many days should an opportunity be in a stage 1 from a stage 2, whatever your stages are, and identifying when opportunities have hit thresholds or gone past the normal cadence, and making sure at each stage that reps have enough pipeline coverage. And so, we look at here at Domo, pipeline coverage is a huge metric that we look at to make sure that reps have enough opportunity at each stage that they're able to hit their number today, hit their number tomorrow, hit their number several months down the road, et cetera.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm sure that you have insight over the team as a whole, but how do you recognize that may have one or two or a few reps that aren't quite on the escalator, they're still riding the elevator? What specifically do you see that you recognize that really quickly?
Yeah, so we break it down to an activity level. And so being able to see, different activities drive different people through the process. So in our example, how many phone calls are reps making to actually fill their pipeline? And how many phone calls does a rep actually need to make on a daily basis in order to fill their pipeline so that they have enough a month or two down the road based upon that sales cycle? And then looking at how many disco calls are they having, and that's where we qualify a client. How many demos are we giving, and how many people are getting into pricing and negotiation calls. And so we track that. And again, looking at what kind of coverage is in each one of those spots, but it really goes down to the activity level and making sure that reps are doing all of the right and enough activity to fill those pipelines. I have perfect insight into everything that my reps are doing, but the key is that I know what they're doing, but I also know exactly what they need to do on an individual basis, because every rep's different. And one rep may have to make 50 calls a day where another may only need to do 30. And I need to know what those numbers are. I need to model my reps so I understand exactly what they need individually, so that collectively as a team, we can hit the number that we have.
Before you had data, you and I have discussed this in the past, but before you had data, how did sales leaders do that? How did they know those things?
Really, you don't. A lot of it's guesswork. Reps are trying to figure out what top reps are saying and what the magic keywords are. And you try to hire people that are similar, but you really don't have a great recipe for what makes success. And it's hard to empower reps to change if you don't know where the focus needs to be. Mm-hmm. So it was complicated.
Excellent. Okay. So assuming you have all your team on this escalator, everything's going really well. Tell us about some of the organizational benefits because your team is riding that escalator.
Yeah, so it goes back to the model that we discussed earlier. A lot of organizations are really modeled off of the sales team, and based upon what the revenue numbers are going to be, how much do we need to spend in marketing to generate that type of revenue? How do we hire? How many fully ramped reps do we need? But it also goes into, how do we budget and how do we hire in additional departments like implementation and support? And so it's extremely important that the sales organization is predictable. And it does have an influence across every department, from, how marketing influences traffic to the sales team, from how we sell individuals, what we expect to bill over the next year or two, what our support department looks like, what our implementation team looks like, et cetera. So from an organizational standpoint, this visibility is everything.
Excellent. We've been doing that here at Domo for a while, and your sales teams have been on that wagon. Give us some examples of where you've seen the benefits of this, maybe with us or maybe with some other customers that we work with.
Yeah. One customer that we worked with in particular was a tech company. It was interesting. This seems to happen quite often in companies where they hired a few new executives that were in sales operations, and those individuals came in and without data started to make changes to their sales process. And they had their marketing attribution wrong. They didn't really know what was happening. They were basically double counting leads. And so as a result, they made changes to their infrastructure on their BDR team and really scrapped a lot of the inbound team, shifted a lot of the spend over to the outbound team. And before they were flushed with opportunities, a couple of months after making this switch, they were getting about half of the opportunities they needed to hit their number. And so Domo was able to come in, and as a result of leveraging information, we're able to find out, do true attribution on leads. They were able to find out exactly how to structure the sales organization, how to comp individuals, and got their leads back to where they were needed, and were able to come into suit with where their model had been laid out.
That's a great example. Side note or sidebar, if you will. How long does it take to get that done?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, BI is something that never completes. What you'll find is, as an organization, you'll continue to get smarter. And the way to think about business intelligence or leveraging data is you're really using information to answer business questions. And you're never going to stop having business questions. You're definitely going to have a foundation of reports, but that example of that company that we just talked about, when they bought Domo, we're solving a problem with lead generation and pipeline coverage. But tomorrow they may be solving a problem with average deal size or other, issues that arise. And so solving having a few business questions answered or solving some business problems can happen in short of a couple of weeks. But, long term, it's something that continues to adapt, and you'll continue to get smarter, and you'll continue to evolve.
That's fantastic insight. Let's talk now about on the individual level. So organizationally, these great benefits occur when your team is on an escalator. But tell us how your sales team individually benefit on the visibility that they have.
Yeah, so my sales team, they're all empowered to understand their own numbers. I don't have to micromanage sales reps. I don't have to monitor what they're doing, because they all know exactly what they need to do and where they're at and where the gap is. And that's very empowering for sales reps. You think about it, there's a lot of things that can impact a sell. It can be your average deal size. Maybe you're a better closer, but your average deal size is half the size. Or maybe your closing percentage is down, or maybe it's up, but you don't have as many opportunities as other reps. And being able to understand, where do you compare to the team, and what metrics do you need to work on? It's one thing to tell a sales rep they're down. It's another for a sales rep to know that they're down, and it's because they have 75% of the opportunities. And not only can they see that, but they can also see where's the gap in activity level. What am I not doing that needs to be done? And if I don't have time for that amount of activity in a day, then what numbers do I need to fix? Is it getting bigger deal sizes? Is it increasing my conversion rate on opportunities? And so it's empowered them to own their own number. And there's no excuses for not hitting your number, because we have visibility several months into the future, and they always know exactly what's happening, what they have, what they need, and when they need to buy.
That's excellent. Give us some examples of some of the customers that have benefited with this type of visibility amongst their own sales teams.
Yeah, great question. So we have a well-known retail brand that is out in the industry. They actually, inside of the retail locations, they have a term they call their managers coaches and their employees athletes. And one of the things they came to solve with Domo is being able to make sure that enough product was always out on the shelf, so they weren't losing sales throughout the day. And so through using data and Domo, they were able to come in and create an experience where the minute product needed to be restocked, it flagged an alert out to one of their athletes, and then started a timer, and they were able to time and see how quickly athletes were able to get product out on the floor. And it created this competition where athletes could see how they stack ranked in their own store, how they stack ranked in the region. And as a result, they increased or decrease the time that it took them to get new product out on the floor or restock shelves. And of course, that's an increase in revenue, because customers are in front of more product throughout the day. And so that was one great example. Another large shipping company came to our user conference last year and talked about how they use data. And one of the examples they gave were, similar to my own experience, which is the fact that they no longer have to manage employees because employees manage themselves. It's kind of the inspect what you expect mentality, where when people know it's being measured, then they rise to the occasion, and employees are now managing themselves. And as a result, you can focus on doing the things that managers really should be doing, which is enabling, sales reps or members of your team instead of trying to figure out what they're doing every day.
You have this great benefit. You've been around data for a long time. You've done these changes amongst your own team. But talk to me for a second. Let's say I'm new. I'm a new sales leader. I really don't know where to start. I've listened to this podcast, and I think, yeah, that's something I need to get on board. Where do I start? Where do I begin?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've always said for a long time that companies will eventually buy a BI platform first, and then they'll actually buy systems that feed information into that BI platform based upon the information they want to gather. I mean, that's really what a CRM is, right? It's really it organizes leads for reps, but really it's the information that we gather out of it. It's understanding the sales process and what's in pipe and giving that visibility. That's really the biggest benefit to CRMs, to marketing applications, et cetera. And so, for me, I always like to start with really understanding, breaking down the recipe, and, where are we at today? Where are the gaps? Where are we missing? What's our model? How close are we to the model? Are we under the model? Are we over the model? From a revenue standpoint, and using information to gain insights before changes are made. Too often, I see it all the time where executives come into a new position and immediately start to make changes without using data. And, it rarely works. And so having that information and really understanding your business and then executing to the changes that the data tells you need to be made.
I like that. I think that's a very wise approach. Let's say that I'm listening to you, though, and I think, look, I've been in the industry 30 years. RJ, I've got twice the experience of you. Everything you're saying sounds great. However, I kind of know my customers. I probably don't need to go into this data model as much as you have. What would you say to something like that for those individuals that feel like they've been probably very successful, but they just don't see the need to change this organizational style?
Yeah. 10, 15 years before now, nobody had the data. The challenge is your competition has this data, and your competition's leveraging this information. So while you've been successful in the past, so has your competition. The difference is your competition is now leveraging this type of information to change the way that they grow the business. And if you're not leveraging information, then you're not really maximizing the revenue potential that your company has.
Fantastic answer. I think that's one you can't really discredit. Lastly here, RJ, with the last couple of minutes that we have, you've given us all advice, really helped us out. If I'm not a data-driven organization today and I need to change my culture, I'm going to take the advice you've given me, I'm going to put these steps in. How long can I expect change? I know you talked a little bit about this before when we talked about the length of time that it takes to get there, but in reality, you've worked with hundreds of customers now doing this. How long can you expect the organization to change and to start getting these data insights that they need to leverage more success on their teams?
Yeah, I think the key is to really identify the areas of the business that you want to start with. So if you're a sales executive and forecasting is a big challenge for you, then start with forecasting. Something like forecasting can be rolled out in just a couple of weeks. If your bigger issues pipeline coverage, then focus there. If it's attribution and marketing, and we know that impacts sales, then start there. It really is focused on what's the business problem that we have today, and identifying that, tackling that problem, and then going to the next one. And problem by problem, if you find the right solution, you can solve these very, very quickly.
Very good. Well, we appreciate your time today, folks. And with that, we'll bid you adieu. And thank you, RJ, for joining us today.
Thank you.
We appreciate the insights you provided. Thank you.
Thanks.